So welcome everyone for this today's session on the topic thyroid gland. Very important topic, both uh, for knowledge point of view, especially for those who are interested in surgery, branches of surgery, those who are even interested in branches of medicine. A question which may be asked in your first MBBS, second MBBS, during your clinical postings, or third MBBS. Um, there can be a question in surgery. So thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is a endocrine gland. All of us know this, and it is there in the lower part of the neck. And it has very rich blood supply. Very rich blood supply. And it is the one which the hormones of which affect the basic metabolic rate. Now let us firstly just study the location of the thyroid gland. But before that, in general, gross structure of the thyroid gland. Now, suppose in the neck, this is the hyoid, okay, which is located higher up in the neck, and below the hyoid, lower down, is the thyroid cartilage. Okay, is the thyroid cartilage. Below the thyroid is cricoid cartilage. Now, thyroid gland is there somewhere. Its extent is from middle of the thyroid cartilage, and below the cricoid, all of us know, are the cricoid are the rings, okay, the rings of the trachea. So the thyroid gland extends, like its shape is like this. So the location is there. It's when we talk about the extent of the thyroid gland, the extent is from this part is called as isthmus of the thyroid, and these are the lobes of the thyroid. Okay, so the isthmus lies around the second and third tracheal ring. So this is thyroid cartilage. Below that is cricoid cartilage, and then there will be the first ring of the trachea, then second ring, third. So isthmus lies along the second and third ring, while lower down here will be the fourth ring and the fifth ring. So the lobe of the thyroid extends from the middle of the thyroid cartilage, or the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, hmm, oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, from there to fourth or fifth tracheal ring. When we talk about the vertebral extent of the thyroid gland, it lies along C5, C6, C7 at the level of C7, C8 vertebra. Okay, so repeat again. The thyroid gland is located in the lower part of the neck. This what I have drawn here is thyroid cartilage. Is thyroid cartilage. Below thyroid is cricoid, and then there is first ring, second ring. So the isthmus lies between the second, in front of the second and the third tracheal ring. While the lobe extends from the middle of the thyroid cartilage up to the fourth and fifth tracheal ring. Okay, so isthmus is up to third, while lobe extend up to the fifth tracheal. What are the parts? The parts of the thyroid gland. The parts of the thyroid gland are two lobes. You can see here two lobes, right and the left lobe, which are connected by isthmus. So this part is isthmus. Now what is this? This may be there or may not be there. This is called as the pyramidal lobe. Okay, this is called as the pyramidal. And sometimes we see a muscular tissue which is extending, from the hyoid bone to this pyramidal lobe, and that is called as levator glanduli thyroid. Levator glanduli thyroid. Okay, so that's about the basic parts of the thyroid, the extent of the thyroid. Okay, the extent of the thyroid, we said it's from the middle of the thyroid cartilage to fifth ring for the lobes and second and third tracheal ring for the isthmus. With that introduction about the thyroid gland in our mind, let us talk about the dimensions and weight of the thyroid. Okay, the thyroid almost extends up to T1. It's C5, C6, C7, C8, and T9. The thyroid gland, the lobes have a dimension of 5 centimeter height and 2.5 centimeter broad. Okay, they are 2.5 centimeter in breadth also. While the isthmus has a dimension of 1.2 centimeter into 1.2 centimeter. The thyroid gland is 25 grams in weight. Now let us talk about the capsules of the thyroid gland and capsule of versus thyroid versus prostate. Now this is a question which will not leave you till you pass your MBBS. Thyroid versus prostate. Now let us see what is the situation in prostate. Both of them have a true capsule and false capsule. True capsule is always inside. Okay, so this inside one is the true capsule. And then there is false capsule. Okay, the false capsule. In thyroid, the false capsule is made up of pretracheal fascia, and true capsule is always made up of peripheral condensation. Is made up of peripheral condensation of the tissue. Okay. In case of, now this is false capsule and true capsule in both of them. In case of prostate, the blood vessels, the venous plexus lies between the true and false capsule. So when we want to remove the prostate, we leave the true and false capsules as it is and remove the prostate like this in between. So prostate, when it is removed, in case of prostate removal, capsules, both capsules are left behind. While in case of thyroid, what happens is the venous plexus is below the true capsule. Okay, venous plexus is below the, and therefore, in case of thyroid has to be removed with the true capsule. Thyroid to be removed with true capsule. So capsules of the thyroid and prostate. The thyroid, both of them on the inner side have true capsules, which are condensations of the gland, of the fascia of the gland, okay, or connective tissue of the gland, and false capsule. False capsule of the thyroid gland is formed by pretracheal fascia. In case of prostate, the gland is here. The venous plexus lies between the true and the false capsule. So when we want to remove the prostate, we can remove it and the true and false capsule can remain there only. In case of thyroidectomy, the thyroid has to be removed with the true capsule. Okay. Why we do this? So to avoid hemorrhage, because if we try to remove with the false capsule, we cannot ligate all these veins which are forming the plexus. What is going to happen is there can be lot of hemorrhage. So we want to avoid the hemorrhage. But here, if we try to keep the capsules like that, there will be hemorrhage because again we'll be cutting the true capsule. We'll be cutting here to keep the both capsules intact. So what we do is we cut here. In case of prostate, we cut here. So this basic difference we should be knowing. Now we move on to our next topic, and that is the relations. The relations. Now to know the relations of the gland, we need to draw a basic diagram, a cut section, a transverse section through the anterior part of the neck. Now, if I take a transverse section through the anterior part of the neck, the one thing which I come across is the trachea. Behind the trachea is esophagus, trachea and esophagus. And as we said that the thyroid gland extends up to the fourth and fifth tracheal ring. So in front of the trachea will be the thyroid gland like this. So this will be the isthmus and these are the two lobes. On the posterior aspect of the thyroid gland here is the parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland. We have to remember that parathyroid glands are located along the posterior part of the thyroid gland. So therefore, whenever we do thyroidectomy, we have to do keep a strip of the thyroid gland behind like this because we don't want the parathyroid to be removed because it has an important role to play in the calcium metabolism. Okay, the calcium levels in the blood will get affected. Now, what are the muscles in front of the thyroid gland? The muscles in front of the thyroid gland are this is the sternothyroid muscle, sternothyroid, in front of which is sternohyoid muscle, on the side of which is omohyoid. So on both the sides here, sternothyroid, then sternohyoid, then omohyoid, and covering all of them is sternocleidomastoid. Sternocleidomastoid. Covering all of them is sternocleidomastoid. Between the between the trachea and esophagus, we find a nerve called as recurrent laryngeal nerve. Here we'll find the carotid sheath containing three structures: the carotid arteries, the internal jugular vein, and the vagus nerve. Okay. Now, with this basic background, let us understand the anatomy and the relations of the thyroid gland. So, firstly, talking about the thyroid gland lobes. The thyroid gland's lobes have lateral surface, then it has a medial surface, and it has a posterolateral surface. So posterolateral surface, medial surface, lateral surface. So these are the lobes. Okay, and this is the isthmus. When we try to write the relations of the lobes, the lobes will be related to all these muscles, right? The lobes will be this lateral surface. Firstly, let us talk about the lateral surface. So the lateral surface of the lobe will be related to sternothyroid muscle, sternohyoid muscle, superior belly of omohyoid muscle, the sternocleidomastoid sternocleidomastoid muscle. Sternocleidomastoid muscle, right? The lateral surface of the thyroid lobes are related to sternothyroid, sternohyoid, superior valley of omohyoid, and sternocleidomastoid. Now, posterolateral surface of the lobes is related to the carotid sheath. You can see here it is related posterior. This is the posterolateral surface. Lateral surface. Lobes have a lateral surface, medial surface, and posterolateral surface. So posterolateral surface is related to carotid sheath. Now coming to the medial surface. Now the medial surface relations are very, very famous. In the sense, even the surgeons talk about it in the same way. It is related to medial surface is related to two tubes, two muscles, and two nerves. So two tubes, you know, trachea and esophagus. You can see here. This is the medial surface of the lobes. Trachea and esophagus. Two muscles. So two muscles, I will draw a separate diagram to show you what are the two muscles. The inferior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, and cricothyroid muscle of the larynx. So one muscle of pharynx, one muscle of the larynx. And two nerves. So one nerve you can see here between the trachea and esophagus, that is recurrent laryngeal nerve. And another nerve which is seen is the external laryngeal nerve. So the medial surface of the lobes of the thyroid are related to two tubes, two muscles, and two nerves, trachea and esophagus. Two nerves are recurrent laryngeal nerve and external laryngeal nerve, which supplies the cricothyroid muscle. Then two muscles are inferior constrictor muscles and the cricothyroid muscle. So two tubes, two muscles, and two nerves. Now I am going to draw a diagram for you. Before that, I would just like to talk about the relations of the isthmus also. In this diagram, you understand the relations of the isthmus also. The isthmus also anteriorly is covered by the sternothyroid muscles, okay, and will posteriorly be related to the trachea, the second and the third tracheal pit. Now we will be talking about their borders also. Okay, the borders of the isthmus, the borders of the lobe. We just talked about surfaces. Isthmus has only two surfaces, anterior related to sternothyroid muscle and posterior sternothyroid and sternohyoid muscles of and posterior and anterior jugular veins. I'll talk about that. And posterior surface related to second and third tracheal ring. I'm not yet talked about the borders of the isthmus and the lobes. Now let us look a side view of the thyroid gland to understand. Or firstly, I'll just draw a front view of the thyroid gland to understand few of the borders. So this is the isthmus, thyroid gland, classically described as the H-shaped gland or a butterfly-shaped gland. These are the two lobes. So isthmus has a superior border and isthmus has an inferior border. Okay, isthmus has a superior border and isthmus has an inferior border. Then lobes have this border which is anterior and this border which is posterior border. Okay, And isthmus has this as inferior border and lobes. So the borders of the lobes are anterior and posterior, and border of the isthmus is superior and inferior. Now let us see the relations. What happens is the superior thyroid artery, which is a branch of the external carotid artery, the first anterior branch of the external carotid artery, it comes up to the upper pole of the thyroid cartilage and divides into anterior and posterior divisions. Okay, so this is superior thyroid artery, branch of external carotid artery. And then this is the anterior branch of the superior thyroid, which comes here like this. So anterior border of the lobes is related to the anterior branch of the superior thyroid, and superior border of the isthmus is related to the anastomosis of the anterior branches of the both superior thyroid arteries. The superior thyroid artery gives the anterior branch which comes along the anterior border of the lobes and gets anastomosis with the anterior branch of the other side. Now this is posterior branch. Posterior branch is here. Now the inferior thyroid artery, both sides we have two inferior thyroid arteries. They are the branches of the thyrocervical trunk of the subclavian. The thyrocervical trunk of subclavian. Now they come here and it goes along the posterior border. Inferior thyroid artery goes along the posterior border. So what is related to the posterior border of the lobes? The anastomosis between the superior thyroid artery and the inferior thyroid artery. When you look at the same picture from the side, it looks like this. You're looking from the side, this is the isthmus. So this is isthmus and this is the lobe. So the superior thyroid artery comes like this, divides into anterior branch which goes like this and posterior branch which goes like this. The inferior thyroid artery comes like this and divides and goes to the along the posterior border. So anterior border of the lobe is related to the anterior branch of superior thyroid artery, and posterior border of the lobes. Posterior border of the lobe is related to anastomosis between the posterior branch of the superior thyroid artery and the inferior thyroid artery. The inferior thyroid artery goes along the posterior border. Now we will study a diagram we will be drawing to study one more feature of this anatomy of the thyroid. And now we are looking at it along with the other structures. So here, what I'm drawing is the hyoid. So hyoid is here. Okay. And below the hyoid, there is the thyroid cartilage. Okay. Below the thyroid cartilage is cricoid cartilage. Below the cricoid cartilage is the trachea. Okay. So the first ring, second ring, third ring, fourth ring, fifth ring. So the thyroid gland, okay, and behind the trachea will be the esophagus. Behind the trachea will be the esophagus. So this is the esophagus. So this is trachea, this is esophagus. The thyroid gland will be located, the isthmus is at the level of second and third tracheal, right? And the lobes are at the level of fourth and fifth tracheal. And the lobe extends up to inferior, the oblique line of the thyroid gland. So this is how, when you look from the side, we see the lobe and isthmus. The isthmus will be uniting with the other side lobe. Okay, so this is the isthmus. This is the lobe. This is the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage. Okay. Now there is one nerve here between the trachea and esophagus. You have to always remember between the trachea and esophagus is recurrent laryngeal nerve. So this nerve we are talking about, the recurrent laryngeal. We said the medial surface of the lobes is related to two nerves. Now here there is one muscle of the larynx which is on the external aspect, and that is the cricothyroid muscle. The cricothyroid muscle, cricothyroid running from cricoid to thyroid cartilage. And here we see one nerve called a superior laryngeal nerve. This superior laryngeal nerve divides into internal laryngeal nerve, which pierces the thyroid membrane. We have come across the thyroid membrane, thyroid membrane when we studied the floor of the carotid triangle. So this thyroid membrane is pierced by the internal laryngeal nerve. So the superior laryngeal nerve divides into internal laryngeal and external laryngeal. Now this is external laryngeal nerve, which supplies this cricothyroid. So the medial surface of the lobes of the thyroid is related to two tubes, trachea and esophagus, two nerves, recurrent laryngeal nerve and external laryngeal nerve, two muscles, cricothyroid, and here is one more muscle called as inferior constrictor muscle. Inferior constrictor muscle, which arises from the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage. Inferior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. So again, I repeat, this diagram is to show how the medial surface, so thyroid gland will be somewhere here like, so I have removed the thyroid gland and I am checking out what is there on the medial surface. So I find two tubes, trachea and esophagus, two nerves, recurrent laryngeal nerve and external laryngeal nerve, two muscles, cricothyroid muscle and inferior constrictor muscle. Here I want you to understand one more thing in this diagram, and that thing is the arteries. There are two arteries, the superior thyroid artery and the inferior thyroid artery. The inferior thyroid artery, it comes like this and in very close relation to the recurrent laryngeal nerve, it divides, goes along the posterior border also. So whenever I want to ligate the recurrent laryngeal artery, I cannot ligate it near the gland. I have to ligate it away from the gland, because if I ligate it near the gland, I may damage the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which supplies all the muscles of the larynx except for the cricothyroid, which is supplied by the external laryngeal nerve. Now there is the superior thyroid artery, which comes like this. So this superior thyroid artery is in close contact with superior laryngeal nerve away from the gland. So when I have to ligate this comes and then here it divides into an anterior branch which will go like this, posterior branch which will go like this, and will anastomose with the inferior thyroid artery. So when I want to ligate the superior thyroid artery, I ligate it near the gland. Why? Because away from the gland, it is in close connection with the superior laryngeal nerve. When I want to ligate the inferior uh, thyroid artery, I ligate it away from the gland, because if I ligate it close to the gland, it is in close contact with the recurrent laryngeal nerve. I repeat again, superior thyroid artery is ligated near the gland, because away from the gland, it is in close contact with the superior laryngeal nerve. When I have to ligate inferior thyroid artery, I ligate it away from the gland, because near the gland, it is in close contact, with the recurrent laryngeal nerve. This superior thyroid artery is also in close contact with the external laryngeal nerve. Now, this external laryngeal nerve supplies the cricothyroid, which is responsible for the pitch of our voice. So what happens is, if we ligate the superior thyroid artery away from the gland, We may ligate the external, we may damage the external laryngeal nerve also, which supplies the clyptothyroid muscle, and then we may lose the pitch of our voice. Okay. So now we have to just write down the relations of the borders, relations of the borders of the thyroid gland, borders of the lobes. Lobes have an anterior border and a posterior border. Anterior border is related to the anterior branch of superior thyroid, and posterior border of the lobes is related to the anastomosis, the inferior thyroid artery and anastomosis between superior and so anterior border, posterior border. Posterior border is related to the inferior thyroid artery and its anastomosis with posterior branch of superior thyroid artery. Okay. Also lying along the posterior borders are parathyroid gland. Hmm. The apex of the lobes. It is related to the oblique line of the thyroid gland. Oblique line of thyroid gland. And base of each lobe is related to the fourth and fifth tracheal ring. Fourth and fifth tracheal ring. Isthmus is related to uh, the anterior surface of the isthmus. We have already studied. Now let us talk about the upper border of the isthmus is related to the anastomosis between the right and left. Isthmus is related to anastomosis between the right and left superior thyroid artery. And the lower border of the isthmus, we are talking about the borders of the isthmus. The lower border of the isthmus is related to the inferior thyroid vein. Okay, inferior thyroid vein. So what I have written, I will show it again. The anterior border of the lobe is related to the superior thyroid artery, anterior branch. Posterior border of the lobe is related to inferior thyroid artery and anastomosis of the superior and inferior thyroid. When we talk about the superior border of the lobes, it is related to anastomosis of the right and the left superior thyroid arteries, which is anastomos along the superior border. And inferior thyroid artery, the inferior border, there is inferior thyroid vein. Now talking about the arterial supply of the thyroid gland. Arterial supply of the thyroid gland is by superior thyroid artery, which is a branch of external carotid artery, and inferior thyroid artery, which is a branch of thyrocervical trunk. Thyrocervical trunk, which is a branch of subclavian artery. Apart from these two arteries, there can be some more arteries supplying it. Okay, and that is called as a thyroidema artery. Now, in 3% of cases, we see thyroidema artery, which may arise from the aorta directly. So why we should be knowing about this thyroidema artery, which may arise from the aorta or brachiocephalic vein, because we have to ligate it during thyroidectomy. Venous drainage. Venous drainage. There are superior thyroid vein, middle thyroid vein. Now, this is where the arterial and venous supply differ. Superior thyroid vein, middle thyroid vein, and inferior thyroid. Okay. The superior thyroid vein is at the upper pole. Okay. And the middle thyroid vein, it uh, you know emerges in the middle part of the lobe, and the inferior thyroid vein along the lower border of isthmus. So this along the lower border of isthmus. Sometimes we may have a fourth thyroid vein of Pocher, okay, which may emerge between the middle and inferior and drain into internal jugular vein. Lymphatic drainage. Why lymphatic drainage is important? Because thyroid cancers are very common. Okay, so they drain into the prelaryngeal lymph node, prelaryngeal lymph node from the upper part, and the lower part they go into the deep cervical lymph, deep cervical lymph node. So the upper part of the thyroid gland goes to upper deep cervical lymph nodes. So, so the upper part and lower part. Upper part via prelaryngeal lymph nodes goes to the upper deep cervical lymph node, while the lower part goes to the lower deep cervical lymph node. So basically, deep cervical lymph nodes is the drainage. Upper part into upper deep cervical lymph nodes, lower part into lower deep cervical lymph nodes. Upper part may go via prelaryngeal lymph node. The nerve supply is via middle cervical ganglia. Middle cervical ganglia. Now, whenever the uh, questions are asked about glands, organs, they come with a pre-question of embryology, right? The development, right? The histology. Okay, so always you should be knowing embryology of this important organ. Now, thyroid gland develops from a thyroid diverticulum. It develops from a thyroid diverticulum, which arises from foramen cecum from the floor of mouth. So from the floor of the mouth, there develops a thyroid diverticulum from foramen cecum caudal to tuberculum impar. So this is tuberculum impar. Caudal to tuberculum impar, there is a foramen called as foramen cecum. Okay, there is a foramen called as foramen cecum. From this foramen cecum, the diverticulum grows down. It will grow down like this. From the foramen cecum, it will grow down like this, the diverticulum, and then divide like this, going to the neck. So where is this tuberculum impar? It is there in the tongue. So that means from the tongue, this goes down. And then here is lateral thyroid from the fourth and the fifth pharyngeal arch. And then this ultimately grows into a gland. Once this grows into the gland, once this thyroid diverticulum, once this thyroid diverticulum goes down into the neck from the floor of the mouth and from the tongue, okay, it develops into the thyroid gland. Now this may sometimes persist, then this connection is cut off. So this may persist slightly like this as pyramidal lobe. So the pyramidal lobe we spoke about is nothing but because it is coming down from above, sometimes some part may just bulge like this, pointing upwards, showing its origin. And sometimes this, and here we find a muscular glanduli thyroidic development. Now this thyroglossal duct normally disappears. So whole of this part will disappear. Sometimes it may not disappear. So there is tongue and there is thyroglossal duct, and below is a cyst. And thyroid gland is there. Normally thyroid gland is seen here. Now what has happened is thyroid gland and thyroglossal uh, duct have been dissociated, but thyroglossal duct has been persisting, and here lower down there develops a thyroglossal cyst. Now how do you differentiate a thyroid swelling from a thyroglossal cyst? The thyroid always moves If you put your hand on your thyroid and swallow the saliva, you will see the thyroid gland moves up. But thyroglossal cyst will also move up. So how do we differentiate between a thyroglossal cyst and a thyroid swelling? If you look from the side, this is the tongue, and from this tongue, this thyroglossal duct and cyst is attached to the tongue. So if you tell the person to protrude the tongue, the thyroglossal cyst will move up because it has this connection with the through the thyroglossal duct with the floor of the mouth and the tongue. So that is how thyroglossal cyst is diagnosed. If you tell the patient to protrude the tongue, the thyroglossal cyst will move upwards. Well, thyroid gland and cyst both moves upwards with every declutation. But cyst moves upwards with protrusion of tongue, and thyroid gland doesn't move upwards with protrusion of tongue. Okay. So developmental anatomy of thyroid gland, you have to know thyroid gland develops from a thyroid diverticulum, which arises from foramen cecum, which is caudal to tuberculum impar. This diverticulum goes down in the neck and divides into right and left thyroid lobes. Then the thyroglossal cyst disappears. A part of this diverticulum may persist as pyramidal lobe. But if the thyroglossal duct persists with a cyst attached to it, this cyst moves up and down with protrusion of tongue. Now also asked in the exam, also asked very commonly in the exam is histology. So this you have already studied. Thyroid gland has thyroid follicles, right? And cuboidal epithelium. Cuboidal epithelium is the characteristic. Okay, so two lines that have to come is cuboidal epithelium. And then here we inside what we see is colloid material. Colloid material. In this colloid material is T3 and T4, and then blood vessels are here. Here are the blood vessels. So what happens is this colloid is absorbed and then sent to the blood vessels, then sent to the blood vessels and then sent out. So it is stored. Normally, thyroid is the only gland which is dependent on IO. It is dependent on iodine, an external substance for production of hormone. Normally, we have a storage of 3 to 4 months of iodine. So if you are going to Himachal Pradesh, hilly areas, Himalayas, for 10 days time, don't worry that iodine is less there and so you may get a goiter. No, we have a storage of 3 to 4 months. But if you are going for 6 months, 1 year, then you have to carry salt, or you have to have salt, iodized salt, so that we don't develop goiter. Otherwise, in our areas, iodine is abundant in our food. We need not, I'm not saying we need not, it's better to take iodized salt always, so that we never unnecessarily we don't suffer from goiter. So there are then there are parafollicular cells, right? These parafollicular cells, as the name suggests, they are between the follicles. These parafollicular cells, they secrete calcitonin. Calcitonin. Yes, we have to write about follicular cells which secrete T3 and T4. Parafollicular cells, these are parafollicles which secrete calcitonin. And cuboidal epithelium. Cuboidal epithelium, follicular cells, and parafollicular cells. That completes the histology of the thyroid gland. Now coming to the last part of the thyroid gland, which is applied anatomy. So when you are doing thyroid gland, please read the histology of the thyroid gland and embryology of the thyroid gland, because in the university, it comes as a very integrated question normally. Now applied anatomy, I have suggested to you, we always write as congenital anomalies first. So what congenital anomalies will not write about? Ectopic thyroid. The thyroid gland, because it is coming from the tongue to the neck, so we may find lingual thyroid. Sometimes it may develop in tongue only, lingual thyroid. So then we may find, a thyroid which is there high up, okay, suprahyoid, infrahyoid, or sometimes we may, this is the normal position. Sometimes we may, the thyroid as descending, it may go in the chest also. It may go in the chest also. So that is ectopic thyroid. Then another thing you have to write, you can write about is the thyroglossal, persistent thyroglossal duct and thyroglossal cyst. So that's the congenital. Then the next point we write is investigations. So in the investigation, we do blood T3 and T4 levels and PSH levels to check always whether a person is having any involvement of thyroid. Then medical problems. In all of you know that there is something called as hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism in that causes sluggishness, sluggishness, myxedema in adults. So hypothyroidism in adults causes, it will cause myxedema, and in children it will cause cretinism. Then goiter. So this goiter swelling always moves up and down with deglutition unless it is too heavy. If it is too heavy, so during thyroidectomy you have to, the strap muscles are moved laterally, and then we do the thyroidectomy, and we have to leave during thyroidectomy. We have to leave a strip on posterior aspect to save parathyroid glands. To save parathyroid glands. We want to save parathyroid glands. So so a small strip is because parathyroid glands are along the posterior border of the thyroid gland. So we keep a small strip of during thyroidectomy. We totally don't remove the thyroid gland, but we keep a small strip to prevent hypothyroidism and also to preserve the parathyroid glands which are located on the posterior aspect of the thyroid. And the fifth point is cancer of thyroid, which is also very common. So the applied anatomy, you have to talk about ectopic thyroid. It can be right lingual thyroid or it can go into thorax. Investigation is T3, T4, CTSS. Medically, uh, the hypothyroidism may manifest in adults as myxedema, in children as cretinism, and goiter. Whenever there is goiter, that is a swelling, huge swelling of the thyroid gland due to iodine deficiency. Whenever we do in the surgical thing, we also write whenever we do thyroidectomy, we leave a strip along the posterior border to preserve the parathyroid gland and cancer of thyroid. So that's all about the thyroid gland. Thank you so much.